Do not scroll past this message. Do not move to the next video. I stopped you here for a reason that will become clear in the next few minutes. And if you leave now, you will spend the rest of tonight wondering what you just missed. You have been waiting for a sign, not just today, not just this week, but for months. You keep telling people you're praying about it. But what you're really doing is circling the same decision over and over, hoping that if you wait just a little longer, I will give you something so obvious that you won't have to risk being wrong. And tonight, I need you to know that this moment, your phone stopping on this message, your heart starting to beat a little faster as you recognize yourself in these words. This is not a coincidence. This is me interrupting your scroll. Because what I'm about to tell you cannot wait until you're ready to hear it. If you can feel your heart quickening right now, if there's a decision you immediately thought of when I mentioned waiting for a sign, then whisper quietly where you are. I'm here, Lord, because I need you present for what comes next. This is a final message about waiting for signs, not the first warning, not a gentle suggestion, but the last time I will address this pattern so directly in this season of your life. After tonight, something has to shift, because the comfortable paralysis you've been living in cannot continue indefinitely. You see, there are spiritual windows that don't stay open forever. My love for you never expires, let me be clear about that. But specific opportunities, specific moments of grace, where all the pieces align for your next step. These do have divine timing. And the window for this particular season of your life is starting to close. The enemy has been very clever with you. He doesn't tell you to stop praying or to stop seeking my will. Instead, he whispers something much more subtle. Just wait a little longer. Just get a little more confirmation. Just make sure you're absolutely certain before you move. And while you've been waiting for lightning to strike, while you've been asking me to write your next step across the sky, I've been nudging you gently, consistently, through that quiet conviction in your heart that you keep dismissing as not clear enough. Your phone stopping on this video right now, the fact that these words are hitting something deep in your chest, the decision that immediately came to your mind when I started speaking. That's not random internet algorithm. That's me, giving you the sign you've been asking for, in exactly the way I've been trying to give it to you all along. If you have been asking for a sign, if you've been watching video after video, hoping someone will make your decision for you, then type, I receive, in the comments below. Because I'm about to show you how your waiting has actually been a form of hiding. I am not speaking to everyone who will hear this message. I am speaking specifically to you, the one whose heart started racing the moment I mentioned waiting for signs, because you know exactly which decision I'm talking about. You're the person who prays about something and then immediately starts overthinking the prayer. You ask for my guidance, then you ask 3 more people for their advice, secretly hoping one of them will say something so definitive that the choice will be made for you. You say, I'm waiting on God. But what you really mean is, I'm afraid of being responsible if I choose wrong. You've written pros and cons lists that you never act on. You've had the same conversation with yourself every night for weeks, always ending up in the exact same place. I still don't know. You feel secretly jealous when you see other believers who seem bold and decisive in their faith, who appear to hear my voice so clearly that they just step forward without all this internal wrestling. You comfort yourself by saying, at least I'm not rushing into anything, while knowing deep down that you're not obeying either. You scroll through spiritual content at night, hoping that one sentence will jump out and make the decision for you. You've even bargained with me. God, if you want me to do this, make this video pop up on my feed. Or give me 3 confirmations. Or let this person say something specific. And when I don't operate according to your formulas, you use my apparent silence as permission to keep waiting. If this is your exact pattern, if I just described the internal battle you've been fighting for months, then breathe deep and stay with me. Because what I'm about to tell you will change how you hear my voice forever. Here's what you need to understand about spiritual timing. I measure time differently than you do. You measure days with calendars and clocks. But I measure time with purpose and obedience. And there is a divine countdown running for your current window of opportunity that your eyes cannot see. When I say window, I don't mean that my love for you has an expiration date. My love is eternal. My grace is sufficient. My forgiveness is complete. But doors connected to specific opportunities, specific callings, specific moments when all the pieces align for your breakthrough. These do not stay open indefinitely. You've been treating this season of decision like it's a permanent state, like you can circle these same questions forever while I patiently wait for you to get comfortable enough to move. But comfort was never the goal. Faith was. Trust was. The willingness to step forward with the light you already have, instead of demanding a spotlight on the entire path. I don't want to close any doors in your life, but doors that are connected to timing, doors that require your cooperation and your courage to walk through them, these cannot stay open indefinitely while you wait for certainty that will never come this side of heaven. The comfortable paralysis you've been living in, this space where you're not walking away from me, but you're not walking toward your calling either. This is a grace period, not a permanent residence. And something is stirring in the spiritual atmosphere around your life right now. Something that says this season of endless waiting is about to shift whether you're ready or not. What happens next depends entirely on how you respond to what you're feeling right now, in this moment. As these words meet the deepest parts of your heart, where you've been carrying questions that won't let you sleep at night. Let me take you back to those nights when you thought I had left you completely alone with your impossible decisions. It's 2:17 a.m. and you're staring at your phone screen, scrolling through the same questions you've been carrying for months. Your room is dark except for that blue glow, and your chest feels heavy with the weight of choices you can't seem to make. You've been lying there for an hour, replaying the same conversation in your mind, always ending up in the exact same place of not knowing what to do. You remember those nights when you would start typing out a prayer, really pouring your heart out, and then you'd read it back and delete the whole thing because it sounded too desperate, too confused, too much like you don't really trust me at all. I remember the night you whispered into the darkness, God, if you are real, if you actually care about what happens to me, just tell me what to do. I can't keep going in circles like this. And when the room stayed quiet, when no voice boomed from heaven, when your phone didn't buzz with a miraculous text message containing perfect instructions for your life, you rolled over and decided I must be silent. There was that Tuesday evening when you sat on the edge of your bed, finally ready to make the decision. And then you got scared and opened Instagram instead. You scrolled for an hour, hoping to see some post, some quote, some sign that would decide for you. And when nothing jumped out, and the algorithm just showed you the same content as always, you took it as confirmation that you should keep waiting. I was there during every single one of those nights. When you thought I was silent, I was listening to every prayer you didn't know how to put into words. When you thought I was absent, I was present in ways you couldn't see, softening hearts you needed softened, arranging circumstances you couldn't arrange, preparing doors you didn't even know existed yet. When you whispered, I don't know what you want from me, I whispered back through that gentle conviction you kept dismissing as your own thoughts. When you said, just give me a sign, I was giving you one through the peace you felt when you imagined choosing one direction, and the anxiety you felt when you imagined choosing another. If you remember these nights, if you can still feel the weight of carrying decisions alone in the dark, then type a 777 in the comments below. Because I want you to know that every tear, every prayer, every moment you felt completely abandoned, I was gathering it all, weaving it into something you couldn't see yet, while you were lying awake thinking I was silent with my soul. I was orchestrating a symphony of circumstances you couldn't hear, while you circled the same decision for the 100th time. I was moving in the hearts of people who would be part of your next chapter. People you haven't even met yet. Conversations that haven't happened yet. Opportunities that weren't ready until this exact moment. You thought your delays were signs of weakness, evidence that you don't hear my voice clearly enough, proof that other believers are somehow more connected to me than you are. But what if I told you that what you called delays were actually my perfect timing? What if the reason you couldn't move forward before now is because the path wasn't ready for you yet? That paralysis you experienced, that inability to just choose and move on. It wasn't punishment for your indecision. It was protection from premature action. I know the difference between hesitation that comes from fear and hesitation that comes from wisdom, and sometimes I hold you back not because you're being disobedient, but because you're being protected from doors that aren't ready to open yet. The wrestling you've been doing isn't wasted time. Every night you spent going back and forth, every prayer that felt like it hit the ceiling, every moment you felt like you were failing at basic Christianity because you couldn't just trust and obey. All of it has been building something in you that you'll need for what comes next. You see, I don't just give you a destination. I transform you into the person who can handle that destination. And sometimes that transformation requires seasons of uncertainty. Seasons where you have to learn to walk by faith instead of sight. Seasons where you discover that your need for perfect clarity was actually a barrier to trusting me. The very thing that has frustrated you most about this process, the fact that my voice has been gentle instead of dramatic, quiet instead of obvious. That's not a flaw in how I communicate. That's exactly how I've been preparing your heart to recognize my voice in every season of your life. Not just the ones where you're desperate enough to listen carefully. Now, let me expose the lie that has kept you trapped in this endless cycle of asking for just one more sign, just a little more confirmation, just a bit more clarity before you finally move. The lie whispers, if I just wait long enough, if I pray hard enough, if I'm patient enough, God will eventually give me a sign so obvious, so undeniable, so crystal clear that I won't have to risk anything. I won't have to step out in faith because I'll know with absolute certainty that I'm making the right choice. But here's what that lie is really saying. I want God to make the decision for me so that if something goes wrong, I'm not responsible. I want Him to remove all possibility of failure, all chance of looking foolish, all risk of being disappointed or disappointing others. Do you see what's happening here? You're not actually waiting on me. You're waiting for a guarantee that faith was never designed to provide. Even Moses had to step into the Red Sea before the waters parted. Even Abraham had to start walking before I showed him the land. Even David had to face Goliath with just a sling and stones, trusting that I would guide the shot. Faith, by definition, means moving forward with trust instead of certainty, with my promises instead of your proof. The truth you don't want to hear is this. Perfect clarity would eliminate the need for trust. And if you don't need trust, you don't need faith. And if you don't need faith, you don't need me. Your demand for absolute certainty before you obey is actually a demand to live independently of the very relationship that gives your life meaning. Needing another sign has become your spiritually acceptable way of saying, I'm too afraid to be wrong, and I'd rather stay stuck than risk stepping forward. And while you've been waiting for me to make the choice for you, you've been missing the quiet, gentle, persistent voice I've been using to guide you all along. Let me reset your expectations about how I actually communicate with my children, because you've been listening for thunder when I've been speaking in whispers. I speak more often through quiet, persistent conviction than through dramatic signs. That gentle nudge you keep dismissing as not clear enough? That peaceful certainty you feel when you imagine choosing one path? And that unsettled anxiety you feel when you imagine choosing another? That's usually me. I don't lead you through anxiety-free guarantees. I lead you through peace that passes understanding. Peace that doesn't make logical sense. Peace that exists even when you can't see the whole staircase. Peace that says, this is the way, even when this is the way looks uncertain to everyone around you. You've been waiting for burning bushes and audible voices, but most of my greatest servants heard my call the same way you're hearing it right now. Through a quiet knowing, a gentle pull, a persistent sense of direction that they couldn't quite explain, but couldn't quite ignore either. Samuel had to learn to recognize my voice. Gideon needed multiple confirmations. Even Mary asked, "How can this be?" But none of them waited for perfect understanding before they said yes. They moved forward with the light they had, trusting that I would provide more illumination as they took each step. The nudge you've been waiting to become stronger or clearer, that's not how my voice works. My voice is already clear enough for those who are willing to listen with their hearts instead of demanding proof for their minds. If you've been feeling that quiet conviction, if there's been a persistent sense of direction that you keep pushing aside because it doesn't feel dramatic enough, then you need to type, "I don't want to miss it," in the comments below. Because I'm already speaking to you in exactly the way I've always spoken to those who learn to trust me. Here's what you need to understand about spiritual timing, because this changes everything about your current situation. I measure time differently than you do. You measure days with calendars and weeks with schedules. But I measure time with purpose and obedience. There is a spiritual countdown running on your current window of opportunity. And that countdown operates on kingdom time, not clock time. This doesn't mean I'm sitting in heaven with a stopwatch waiting to slam doors in your face. This means that some opportunities are connected to seasons. And seasons have rhythms that don't wait for you to get comfortable with the idea of change. There's a divine countdown on your current situation. Not because I want to pressure you, but because opportunities that require courage, faith, and partnership with me cannot stay available indefinitely. The door I'm asking you to walk through requires a version of you that's willing to move without perfect clarity. And every day you insist on having all the answers before you start walking is a day that door becomes a little harder to open. I don't want to close any doors in your life, but doors that are connected to your calling, doors that lead to the purpose I designed you for, doors that require you to grow in faith and dependence on me. These doors exist within windows of time that are measured by readiness, not by calendar dates. Your comfort zone of still deciding feels safe, but it's actually a grace period with an expiration date. And what you're feeling right now as you listen to these words, that gentle urgency, that sense that something needs to shift, that awareness that this season of endless circling cannot continue forever, that's not anxiety. That's spiritual discernment. That's your heart recognizing that the countdown is real. Take a deep breath right where you are and whisper quietly, "I don't want to waste this window." Because the moment you stop demanding perfect clarity and start trusting the light you already have, that's the moment everything begins to shift. Let me show you the enemy's strategy in your situation. Because once you see it, you'll never fall for it again. The enemy doesn't attack your faith by telling you to stop believing in me. He's much more subtle than that. Instead, he convinces you that you need perfect certainty before you can move in faith. He whispers, "You're being wise. You're being careful. You're making sure you don't make a mistake. Keep waiting until you're absolutely sure." And while you've been congratulating yourself on being thoughtful and not rushing, he's been stealing days, weeks, months from the very purpose I created you to fulfill. Distraction is a weapon. Overthinking is a weapon. Analysis paralysis is a weapon designed specifically to keep people who love me trapped in the space between calling and obedience. Because he knows that the longer you sit in that space, the easier it becomes to convince yourself that staying stuck is actually spiritual maturity. Every day you remain frozen in indecision is a day stolen from your destiny. Every night you go to bed having made the same choice to wait a little longer is a night he celebrates. Because he knows that people who never risk anything for the kingdom never accomplish anything for the kingdom either. The very thing you're most afraid of, making the wrong choice, looking foolish, being disappointed, is actually less dangerous to your spiritual life than never making any choice at all. Because faith grows through action, trust develops through testing, and character is built through the experience of stepping forward even when you can't see exactly where you're going. You've been treating your need for certainty as wisdom, but it's actually the enemy's way of keeping you permanently sidelined from the very life I designed you to live. And the longer this continues, the easier it becomes to convince yourself that this paralysis is actually spiritual maturity, when really it's just fear dressed up in religious language. The breakthrough you're looking for, the clarity you've been demanding, the peace you've been seeking, it all comes on the other side of the step you've been afraid to take. I know this has become harder because the world has never been louder. Everyone around you has opinions about what you should do. Family members offering advice based on their fears, not my voice for your life. Friends sharing their experiences as if their path should automatically become yours. Social media bombarding you with success stories that make you question whether you're moving fast enough, thinking big enough, trusting boldly enough. Your heart feels torn between what others expect from you and what I've been quietly whispering to you in those private moments when it's just you and me. In all this noise, voices telling you to be practical, to be realistic, to think about security, to consider what could go wrong. You've started doubting your ability to recognize my voice at all. You wonder, what if I'm just hearing what I want to hear? What if this nudge I keep feeling is just my own desire dressed up as spiritual guidance? What if I'm about to make a huge mistake because I can't tell the difference between my voice and my own wishful thinking? And in that confusion, in that space where external pressure meets internal uncertainty, your heart has become a battleground between trust and fear, between stepping forward and staying safe, between what the world calls wisdom and what I call faith. I need to address something that's been eating at you from the inside, something you haven't said out loud, but I see written across your heart every time you compare yourself to other believers. You feel like you're failing at basic Christianity because you can't seem to hear my voice as clearly as everyone else appears to. You watch other people make big decisions with what looks like effortless faith, and you wonder what's wrong with you, that you need so much confirmation, so much prayer, so much wrestling before you can move forward. The shame whispers. Strong Christians just know what God wants. Mature believers don't need this much hand-holding. If you really trusted Him, you wouldn't need to ask for signs. If your relationship with Him was real, His will would be obvious to you. And so, you've been carrying this secret weight, this quiet conviction that your struggle with decision-making is evidence of spiritual immaturity, proof that you don't have the kind of faith that actually works, confirmation that other people are just better at this Christianity thing than you are. But let me tell you something that will change how you see your entire journey. I never designed you to have robot-like certainty about every decision. The wrestling you've been doing, the careful consideration, the desire to make sure you're hearing my voice correctly. That's not weakness. That's the mark of a tender heart that actually cares about doing what pleases me. The believers you admire for their quick decisions. Many of them learned to trust my voice through the same process you're going through right now. The difference is, they're not in the middle of learning anymore. So you only see the confidence that came after years of wrestling, not the wrestling that built the confidence. Your need for confirmation doesn't make you less spiritual. It makes you someone who understands that the decisions of faith have real consequences. And you want to get this right because you love me enough to care about obedience. Place your hand on your heart right now. Take a deep breath and say quietly where you are, God sees my tender heart. Because your struggle isn't evidence of failure, it's evidence of a heart that's soft enough to be shaped by my voice. I need you to stop seeing your careful nature as a character flaw and start seeing it as part of how I'm preparing you for what comes next. You're not behind where you're supposed to be. You're not running late on my timeline. You're not missing windows because you're too cautious. What you've been calling delays and hesitation, I've been calling preparation and foundation building. My timeline for your life includes seasons of waiting that develop character you'll need later. Seasons of uncertainty that teach you to depend on me instead of your own understanding. Seasons of wrestling that build the spiritual muscle you'll need to carry the weight of what I'm calling you to. What looks to you like being behind is actually me positioning you for greater impact. While other people were rushing into decisions that required quick fixes later, I've been developing in you the wisdom to build things that last. While others were stepping forward based on emotion or pressure, I've been teaching you to recognize the difference between my peace and your own wishful thinking. Your cautious nature isn't weakness. It's me developing discernment in you. Some of my greatest servants moved slowly, carefully, with lots of prayer and counsel before making major decisions. That's not spiritual immaturity, that's spiritual wisdom. And some callings require deep roots before public growth. Some purposes demand internal strength before external opportunity. Some destinies need character development before platform development. The time you think you've been wasting in indecision has actually been time I've been using to grow something in you that will be essential for where you're going. You see people who seem to be moving faster than you, and you think you're falling behind, but you don't see their whole story. You don't see the quick decisions they had to undo later, the impulsive moves that created problems they're still solving, the boldness that was actually just impatience dressed up as faith. If you felt behind, if you felt like everyone else got the hearing God clearly gene that you missed, then whisper right now, God is positioning me. Because what you call being behind, I call being prepared. Here's what I need you to understand about my love for you, because this changes everything about how you approach the decisions ahead of you. My love for you is not conditional on you making perfect choices. My acceptance of you doesn't depend on you getting every decision exactly right on the first try. My delight in you isn't measured by how quickly you figure out what I'm asking you to do. Even if you step forward and it turns out you misunderstood my guidance, even if the path you choose leads to complications you didn't expect, even if you look back in a year and realize there was a better way, none of that changes how I feel about you. None of that diminishes your value to me. None of that puts you outside the reach of my grace. I would rather have you step forward imperfectly than stay frozen in perfect analysis. I would rather have you risk being wrong than guarantee being stuck. I would rather have you moving toward me with uncertainty than standing still with stubbornness. Grace doesn't just cover the sins you commit. It covers the human limitations you live with. Grace doesn't just forgive moral failures. It embraces the learning process that comes with following me as a human being who sees partially and understands incompletely. You've been so afraid of making a mistake that you've forgotten that even mistakes can become part of my redemptive plan for your story. Some of my greatest servants have testimonies that include wrong turns that became right stories, detours that became divine appointments, choices that looked like failures but turned into the exact preparation they needed for what came next. Your story doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. Your path doesn't have to be straight to be significant. Your decisions don't have to be flawless to be faithful. What I'm looking for is not perfection, it's progression. Not certainty, but trust. Not a guarantee that you'll never make a wrong choice, but a willingness to keep choosing me, even when the way forward isn't completely clear. If you need grace for imperfect obedience, if you need permission to step forward without having all the answers figured out first, then type 444 in the comments below, because that's exactly the kind of grace I specialize in providing. And that's exactly the kind of journey I designed faith to be. Everything is about to shift for you, but only if you respond to what you're feeling right now, instead of waiting for this moment to pass and returning to the same patterns that have kept you circling the same decisions for months. If you respond to my gentle guidance in this season, if you choose to trust the quiet conviction you've been feeling instead of demanding lightning and thunder, everything in your spiritual life can change. The breakthrough you've been praying for, the clarity you've been seeking, the peace you've been missing. It's all waiting on the other side of your willingness to move forward with the light you already have. This pattern of paralysis has been keeping you from your next level of purpose. While you've been waiting for perfect certainty, opportunities have been passing by. While you've been demanding more signs, I've been preparing doors that require someone who's learned to trust my voice, even when it's gentle, even when it requires faith, even when it doesn't eliminate all risk. The version of you that's been stuck in analysis paralysis cannot carry the weight of what I want to give you next. The calling I have for your life requires someone who's learned to recognize my voice in whispers, not just in shouts. It requires someone who's developed the spiritual maturity to move when I say move, even when the path isn't completely illuminated. Small acts of obedience to quiet conviction unlock greater clarity. Every time you choose to trust my gentle nudge instead of waiting for a more dramatic sign, you're building spiritual muscle you'll need for bigger decisions ahead. Every time you step forward with partial understanding, you're proving to yourself and to me that you can handle the kind of relationship where I lead you step by step, rather than giving you a roadmap for the entire journey. Your testimony is going to include this moment when you stopped waiting for perfect clarity and started trusting perfect love. People are going to ask you how you learned to hear my voice so clearly, and you're going to tell them it started the night you decided to stop demanding thunder and started paying attention to whispers. If you can feel something stirring in your spirit right now, if you can sense that this moment is different from all the other times you've felt stuck, if you're ready to trust my quiet voice, instead of waiting for a louder one, then type "I believe" in the comments below. Because I need to know that you're ready for what comes next. And what comes next requires the courage to follow gentle guidance with great faith. Let me give you a practical framework for moving forward, because I know you need more than just encouragement. You need a way to translate this internal shift into external action. Obedience doesn't have to start with a dramatic gesture. It starts with the smallest step in the right direction. You don't need to see the whole staircase to take the first step. You don't need to understand the entire plan to begin moving toward what I've been quietly showing you. That decision you've been circling for months? You already know what the first small step looks like. It might be making a phone call you've been avoiding. It might be having a conversation you've been postponing. It might be applying for something, or researching something, or simply admitting out loud what you've been feeling in your heart. I reveal more of my plan as you move, not while you're sitting still analyzing what you think the plan might be. The clarity you've been demanding before you start walking, that comes through walking, not through waiting. The confirmation you've been seeking before you take action, that comes through taking action, not through more prayer about taking action. Here's what I want you to understand. I'm not asking you to make the entire decision tonight. I'm asking you to make the decision to take the next faithful step. And then tomorrow, when that step leads to the next small choice, I'll be there to guide you through that one too. Stop overwhelming yourself by trying to figure out steps 5, 6, and 7 when you haven't even taken step 1 yet. Stop paralyzing yourself by imagining all the things that could go wrong down the road when you haven't even committed to starting down the road. What feels like a small nudge today becomes your breakthrough story tomorrow. What looks like an insignificant step right now becomes the moment everything changed when you look back on this season from where you'll be a year from now. The courage you think you need to have before you start? That courage develops as you start, not before you start. Faith doesn't eliminate fear. It chooses trust in spite of fear. And the only way to discover that you can trust me with uncertain outcomes is to start taking uncertain steps. Put your hand on your heart right now. Take 3 deep breaths and make this commitment with me. You will take one small step in the next 48 hours that moves you toward what you know I've been gently pointing you toward. Don't overthink it. Don't wait until you feel ready. Just commit to movement and let me worry about the rest. Let me show you something that will give you the courage you need to finally stop waiting and start walking. A year from now, when you're living in the breakthrough that started with tonight's decision to trust my gentle voice. You're going to look back on this moment with profound gratitude. You're going to remember this as the turning point when you stopped demanding perfect clarity and started trusting perfect love. The future version of yourself, the one who learned to recognize my voice in whispers, who developed the confidence to move forward with partial understanding, who built a testimony of trusting me through uncertain seasons. That version of you is going to thank you for having the courage to start before you felt ready. 5 years from now, when people ask you how you learned to hear my voice so clearly, you're going to tell them about this season when you wrestled with wanting bigger signs, but chose to trust smaller nudges. When you felt like everyone else heard me more clearly than you did, but you decided to act on the clarity you had instead of waiting for the clarity you wanted. The person you're becoming requires you to step forward with the light you have now. The growth you're asking me for can only happen through the experience of trusting me when trust feels risky. The spiritual maturity you want to develop will only come through making decisions that require you to depend on me instead of your own understanding. Years from now, you'll see how this moment of choosing to move without perfect certainty became the foundation of a life lived in greater intimacy with me. You'll understand that the very thing you thought was holding you back, the gentle, quiet way I speak to you, was actually the exact kind of communication that would serve you best in every season ahead. Your legacy won't be about making perfect choices every time. It will be about faithful responses to gentle guidance. It won't be about never making mistakes. It will be about learning to trust me enough to move forward even when you couldn't see the whole path. The breakthrough that's waiting for you, the purpose I've been preparing you for, the peace you've been seeking. It's all connected to your willingness to say yes to what you already know, instead of waiting for what you think you need to know. If you can see your future self being grateful for this moment of decision, if you can envision the person you'll become when you learn to trust gentle nudges instead of waiting for dramatic signs, then stay with me for these final words. Because I'm about to give you exactly what you need to make tonight the night everything changed. So here we are at the end of this message, and I need you to understand something that will change everything about how you move forward from this moment. Everything you felt while listening to these words, every moment your heart quickened, every time you thought of that specific decision you've been avoiding, every gentle conviction that stirred in your spirit. This is the sign you've been asking for. Stop looking for something bigger than what I've already given you. Stop waiting for a more dramatic confirmation than the quiet peace you feel when you imagine choosing the path I've been gently pointing toward. Stop demanding thunder when I've been speaking in exactly the tone that will serve you best for the rest of your life. This message, finding you tonight, these words hitting the exact places in your heart where you've been carrying questions, the way your spirit has been responding to what you've heard. This is not a coincidence. This is my answer to months of prayers for guidance. This is the nudge you've been waiting for, delivered in exactly the way I've been trying to deliver it all along. You already know what decision this message is pointing toward. You know what small step you've been afraid to take. You know which conversation you've been avoiding, which application you've been postponing, which choice you've been circling without committing. The nudge is gentle because my voice is gentle. But gentle doesn't mean optional. Quiet doesn't mean unimportant. Subtle doesn't mean uncertain. You were never called to a life where you never risk. I don't lead through guarantees. I lead through grace. I don't speak through eliminating uncertainty. I speak through providing peace in the midst of uncertainty. Stop waiting. Start trusting. Take the step. Make the call. Have the conversation. Submit the application. Choose one decision you've been circling for months. Write it down. Pray honestly about it. And take one small action in the next 48 hours that aligns with what you already know is right. And as you do it, whisper, I trust you more than my fear of being wrong. Before you go, I need you to understand that this message wasn't meant for you alone. Right now, as you've been listening, my spirit has been bringing to your mind 1, 2, maybe 3 people who are stuck in the exact same pattern you've been stuck in. People who have been waiting for signs, circling decisions, struggling with the gentle way I speak versus the dramatic confirmation they think they need. Someone you know needs to hear these exact words tonight. Someone in your contacts is lying awake right now, asking for just one more sign before they finally move forward. Someone you care about has been treating their need for perfect certainty as spiritual maturity, when it's actually fear dressed up in religious language. And sharing this message with them becomes your first act of obedience to what you've heard tonight. It becomes your way of saying yes to the nudge while helping someone else recognize their nudge too. So do this. Share this video with those 1, 3 people I brought to your mind. Don't overthink it. Don't wait until tomorrow. Let this be the moment you stop overthinking and start obeying. And if this message was the nudge you needed, if your heart is telling you this was meant specifically for you, then type, "I don't want to miss it," in the comments below. Let that be your bookmark, your way of saying yes, your commitment to stop waiting and start walking. Return to this message often. Let it remind you of the night you chose trust over certainty, movement over paralysis, gentle guidance over dramatic signs. Your breakthrough starts now.